Welcome to the Why Did I Get Cancer podcast. I'm Deborah Herlax-Enos, a small-town girl turned TV nutritionist and healthy living expert. I design health programs for the average guy or gal, including those average guys named Metallica. On September 1st, 2020, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I asked every oncologist the same question, why did I get cancer? But none of my doctors had good answers for me. I wanted answers, and that's why I started this podcast. I want to help you to lower your cancer risk and provide self-care tips for those in the battle. I'm getting answers, and I want to share them with you. So I just finished the most amazing recording with Dr. Greg Jantz, founder of A Place for Hope. And we talked about toxic people and the impact toxic people can make on our health. And it's huge. I really had no idea. But I've also attracted my fair share of toxic people into my life. And to be honest, I'm sure I've been toxic for some people too. Here's my big takeaway is that the way to get your power back from a toxic person is to forgive them. Oh, so hard, but so effective. And he said this is really the first steps in healing, and also not allowing that person to take up any headspace. So you got to give the episode a listen. He's got other great tips. We also talked a lot about anxiety and addiction. It was just a phenomenal episode, and I hope you enjoy it. Dr. Jantz, welcome back to Why Did I Get Cancer? I am giggling because how this podcast even happened today is you passed me a note after church a couple of Sundays ago. We were standing in line getting coffee. I was talking to you and your wife. And my husband was there too. And we're all just gabbing about the podcast and your appearance and how it's one of my most downloaded episodes. And I said, we should do this again. And then about 10 minutes later, you said, I think I have a topic, and you handed me this note. You said, look at it later.
That's right. Put it in your pocket.
And I got in my car, and it said the impact that toxic people can have on your life and on your health. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is a phenomenal topic. So welcome, Dr.
Good to see you today. And I hear you today, Deborah. And yes, I think toxic people is a bigger issue than maybe what we realize.
Yeah. Well, unpack that a little bit for me, because at any given moment, we can all say, I've got a toxic family member or even somebody who cut me off in traffic. Is that considered a toxic person?
It might be. Well, we all have at least one. Some of us may have more. Maybe you're in the workplace, or maybe it is a relative. But a toxic person is one that devalues you. When you're around them, you usually feel, I'm going to use a psychological term, slimed. You feel slimed. And what I mean is, it's like, I just feel icky when I'm around this person. And you can't always put your finger on it and go, what is it? But maybe you don't feel heard. You don't feel listened to. Maybe you notice there's some frustration or anger that seems to come up within you. Or maybe you feel afraid. And every time I'm around this person, I feel anxious. And you don't really know for sure what's going on. But that can be the effects of a toxic person. Now, just imagine if you live with one, or you live with a person that in the workplace and you're with them every day. Over time, that does have an effect on our health and well-being and our sense of self.
Right. I mean, it's got to have a huge impact on your health. If you are constantly in a state of, you want to get away from this person, but yet they're your boss or they're your coworker and you're on projects with them all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, your stress level, so your cortisol is going to be pumping, your stress hormones pumping through your veins all the time. That impact cannot be good.
And so here's a couple things to look at. Maybe you feel like, I think I might have a toxic person. Well, are you, besides avoiding them, do they use some brain space? Are you thinking about them? Do you find yourself irritated and you're thinking about them, but you don't really want to, but you're thinking about them, or you're thinking about how to avoid them, or how am I going to deal with them? The toxic person in your life may try to exert power and control. So it can be quite emotionally abusive. Are they a person that's constantly demanding and you notice, wow, um, I can't handle them. And those are the feelings. So is your sleep disruptive? Did you find that you sometimes maybe even dream about them and you don't want to dream about them, but you notice that it really is affecting your sleep and you feel like, wow, my appetite may be affected when I'm around them, or I know I have to be. You might be one or two extremes. I'm eating because I'm anxious, or I just lose my appetite because I have to deal with this person.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that is hugely
Yeah.
impactful on everything. So let's just even unpacking the sleep piece of it. If you're not sleeping well, you can't be well. So
Uh,
if this person is taking up headspace as you are trying to fall asleep, is that your issue or their issue?
well, I think two words: personal power. We can give away our sense of personal power
Hmm.
inadvertently. We didn't really want to, but if you're
Hmm.
consumed by them or you're absorbed and you're thinking about them, it's as though that gets kind of a what I'll call a stronghold. It's just it's there, and maybe you feel maybe this is a toxic person that has
Hmm.
deeply wounded you, and they could have wounded you through words, through physical. Obviously, a person that practices any kind of abuse is a toxic person. So, but
Hmm.
maybe the wound uh, or the trauma is pretty deep with this person. And so it's like,
Hmm.
I've never been able to shake this off because the pain seems so deep. Or maybe over the
Right.
years, things have compounded and it's just caused you to feel a lot of maybe it's resentment. Maybe you realize,
Hmm.
wow, I've kind of become embittered because of this toxic person in my life. So that will affect sleep. That will affect also
Right.
other relationships. And,
Hmm.
Deborah, when I think about toxic people, if we're carrying around a lot of that hurt constantly, then it does affect our other relationships.
It does. It can't help but affect
Mm.
them. I mean, I think that I've been around toxic people before, and I actually can feel my personality change a
Yes,
little bit.
yes. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad
Where,
you mentioned that because here's what might happen. If you're around a toxic person, you may suddenly feel younger or you feel more um, maybe a little less immature, and they just cause you to
hmm.
feel that you're not as worthy, and so you
Yes.
feel less of a person. Now,
Yes. Yeah.
sometimes they do it in words, sometimes it's just their presence. Um,
Sometimes it is just their presence, and you just feel something coming
yes,
off of them that makes you feel like you're, 5 years old and you're in trouble.
right, yes.
Yeah.
And this could be we have to look at this through all the lenses of the whole person. So there could be a real spiritual issue, uh, and there could be really issues that
Hmm.
are related to personality, even personality disorder. A toxic
Hmm.
person could be a narcissistic personality, and
Hmm.
it's all about them. It's all about their power and control. A toxic person could be somebody with an addiction, an
Okay.
addiction, we tend then to be more abusive towards others. I know that's hard to hear for some, but
Hmm.
addiction really does change a person, changes their personality. And so
Hmm.
those are just a couple things to look at. Go, do I live with somebody or have somebody in life that really there is an addiction issue?
Right. And I mean, and I could see if this is at the workplace, I mean, perhaps there is a way out. I mean, maybe you don't want to quit your job, but maybe you can get transferred to another department or whatever it is. But what if this is a family member but maybe you only see them a couple times a year? Is that something you can just kind
Oh,
of,
okay.
do some self-care and kind of, prepare yourself for somebody like that?
I am glad you mentioned that. Family members, holidays, times when you go,
Holidays.
oh
Yep.
no. And it may be 2 months away and you're already thinking about what am I going to do?
What am I going to say when they say X?
Yeah. So I always like, if possible, to decide ahead of time, right down to the details. It sounds kind of funny at first, but even your personal presentation, the clothes you wear, you want to feel really comfortable in you. So this is not the time to try out a new pair of shoes that may be hurting your feet, right? I want you to feel good.
That's a good tip, though.
I want you to feel good about yourself.
Right.
We're back to sleep and nutrition. I want you to have some good self-care, but also think about who can I, if I'm going to an event, who can I have with me that in a way kind of is a bodyguard? In other words, wherever I am physically, they're just always next to me. Okay. And I have maybe a certain code, like this is getting to be too much. Maybe I don't pull my ear and it's like, okay, that's the code. It's time to make an escape. So, but you've got to pre-plan these. Also, pre-plan what topic you're willing to talk about and what are the topics that if you're baited on a certain topic, whatever it is, that you're not going to engage with. Okay, so you really have to, in a way, rehearse and be prepared. And you have to decide ahead of time, okay, this is going to be a little challenging. It's going to be a little awkward at times, but I am going to handle it differently this time. And I am going to not give away my personal sense of power. Okay. It does not have to diminish my self-esteem. And so, but and even the person that's going to be with you, I don't know if it's a spouse or whoever it is that's going to be with you.
Right.
They need to know also like how to interject and even change a topic.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. And maybe they can see the direction things are going, the upcoming political cycle, or how you feel about, this and that going on in the world. And somebody just says, hey, let's move on to less volatile topics, because some people just really enjoy getting into the debate.
Well, and this may be, yes, exactly, Deborah. This may be a person also that they like conflict and they like to push your buttons.
Yes.
So you're just not going to have your buttons pushed. You're not going to respond in the same way. You're not going to be angry. You're not going to start crying. Okay, you're going to handle this one differently. And so that's where we want to maybe rehearse. Your person I call it a bodyguard, but your person that's with you, they need to know what are the topics, what are ways that they can interject. But don't go into these situations alone if you know maybe that you're going to be a target of emotional abuse, if there's still a lot of pain in that relationship. Find a way not to do that alone.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think you're just going to feel so much stronger if, if there's two of you kind of going head to head with this, it probably really helps.
It does. And that's just a protection. Yeah. Now, we also know we need to check our heart. If you have a person that, they've been a toxic person in your life a long time and it is painful. Well, one of the things you may have to look at is, how am I going to start to release some of that pain? How am I going to drain some of this off of me? And I may have to look at even issues of forgiveness. Am I in a place where I am carrying things that I really do not need to continue to carry because it's poisoning me? And so I know this is...
Boy, that's a tough one. So basically you're saying, you have this interaction with this family member 6 times a year when you see them at events and holidays, but you carry it around. So you're saying you need to forgive them.
I think we need to sometimes work on that. And I say work on it. I think we can make a decision and maybe it's a redecision over and over that I am releasing this. And, if we don't learn that, it continues, and the word I'll use is torture. It continues to torture us. And I don't mean this to sound easy, but I think it's something we need to look at. If we've been deeply wounded and injured, how am I going to release that pain? That doesn't mean that I'm in relationship with this person all the time. It does not mean I'm their best friend. Okay. But it's become toxic to me. They're a toxic person, and my response to it becomes toxic. So I've got to look at what can I do?
Yeah, because you can't control them.
Yeah.
All you can really control is your reaction to their, I'll just say, bad behavior.
Yes.
And forgiveness you mentioned, you handing away your personal power. Is forgiveness a way to get it back?
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. And yes, working on and practicing forgiveness is a way that we regain not only our personal power, but we regain our well-being. We know forgiveness and practicing it is good for our immune system. We know if I struggle with depression or anxiety, I need to always make sure that I am resolving forgiveness in my life. Do I have unforgiveness? If I'm so toxic and it's affecting my immunity, my body's getting sick. So we need to remember, emotions always go somewhere. Okay. And they can land in our body and make us sick.
Wow. Okay. So practicing forgiveness can actually improve your immune system.
Absolutely. I see things. This is actually our 40th year at the Center of Place of Hope. And I can tell you over the years, if there's one single issue that comes up most often for our clients, and it really does revolve around forgiveness, unresolved hurt, unresolved pain. And if I really want to release that baggage, I really want to live differently and feel differently about myself, I do have to figure out forgiveness.
Okay. So forgiveness, and I practice it because I feel like I've struggled with it. And I wonder, is that, did that impact my cancer diagnosis? But sometimes forgiving somebody who has really hurt you, either physically, mentally, verbally, you name it, it can feel like a sign of weakness.
Oh, yeah. It can't. It go, okay, am I giving in to them? And I'm just rolling over, going to forgive them. Forgiveness.
Right. I'm a doormat. Yeah.
Forgiveness never implies that they're right. Forgiveness does not imply, that in any way you have to be in relationship with them. So I do know, just because I see, if I forgive, I'm going to have healthier other relationships. Unforgiveness can affect my ability to be close and intimate with people. It affects my ability to trust. You've probably met somebody who they're so full of resentment and bitterness. They're looking through the lenses of resentment and bitterness, and they misread people's motives. They think everybody's against them. You say something to them and it totally gets misinterpreted, and you go, what?
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything resembling that. Right.
So they're easy. And one of the ways to see, are you easy to pick up offenses? Are you easily offended? Then that's probably a clue that we need to look at forgiveness.
Oh my gosh. Could you say that again?
Yeah, well, I'm just so easy to pick up offenses. I'm offended by everybody and everything, right? Somebody, I go, they didn't look at me right, or they didn't smile at me, and you take offense.
Right.
So taking and picking up offenses is going to poison you emotionally, but it's also a sign that there's unforgiveness in your life.
Oh, that is so simple. I mean, it just makes you recognize something that maybe you wouldn't have recognized otherwise.
Right. And you will feel better. I can tell you forgiveness does impact sleep. It does impact our body and digestion. It affects our posture. You think of an embittered person, you might think of they're all hunched over and they're all stiff.
Right.
I have
Yeah.
seen clients who really worked on forgiveness, and they began to look at this, and suddenly years of joint pain that maybe was called arthritis and just joint and aches and pains. It's like all that got released from my body. And so there
Really?
is a physical implication. I don't always know what it's going to be, but I know it's going to be positive.
Wow, that is really amazing. So not forgiving somebody, being easily offended, taking things the wrong way, that has to go someplace in our body. And yeah, it could go to your joints. It could go to your liver. It could go to your wherever and cause problems.
We do store old hurt and emotions if we do not practice forgiveness or release them. I do see a lot of physical concerns that people bring in. And I'm not saying this is the magical answer for everything, but I'm saying when we address it, we know it will have a positive impact in a person's life. If you're engaging in self-destructive behavior or cutting, hurting yourself, anything that is self-destructive, we do need to look at what is going on in the forgiveness department.
If I don't have food in my fridge, I can get hangry really quickly. So here's my pro tip is I always have a good amount of ground beef in my freezer and in my refrigerator. If it's in your freezer, it's super easy to defrost and I can put dinner together so fast. Here's how I used to prep it back in the day when I had like almost no budget for protein. I would cook up a pound of ground beef. Then I would add refried beans to it or black beans to it and mix it up, maybe add a little bit of onion or some garlic. And all of a sudden, my 1 pound of ground beef had grown into like 1.5 pounds. It's got additional protein, which I love. It's got a great hit of fiber, which I also love. Most Americans are fiber deficient. And it's going to have a good dose of nutrients. So here's a great deal that's going to help you to do all of these things from my friends at ButcherBox. So they have a great special going on right now. And what it is if you sign up with my link using the code ENOS, you can get 2 pounds of ground beef per month for free for an entire year. If ground beef isn't your thing, you can get 3 pounds of chicken or a pound of premium steak tips. And honestly, you know how I feel about ButcherBox. I love that they know where the protein comes from. They use great animal husbandry techniques. And again, I'm just really happy that this company is sponsoring this podcast. They really do a great job. So go to the show notes. You're going to get my link. You're going to get the coupon code. And I hope you enjoy the protein as much as I do. Is forgiveness something you've seen in your last 40 years there? Something that you need to practice on a daily basis?
I think we do need to be aware of it on a daily basis. We've all been on the receiving end of attacks and things that were unjust and not right. And we live right now in a culture that seems to be a lot of blame, a lot of cancel this, cancel that. And so I'm just saying, don't take that personally. That's probably not about you, but be sure don't to carry around the hurts. So I know personally, though, I didn't realize it for many years, but I know personally the effects of having unforgiveness. And I had a family member that was growing up extremely emotionally abusive. And I didn't realize till many years later, after this person even died, oh my goodness, I started to connect the dots. And, I do remember, it's been a few years ago, but I remember writing a forgiveness letter. I go, I got to figure out how to take care of this. I wrote a forgiveness letter and I went to the gravesite. And
wow, that's powerful.
I read my letter and then I stuffed it there at the gravesite. I left it there as just a acknowledgement. I'm leaving this behind. So I
Oh,
know
I love
personally
that. Yeah.
the effects that unforgiveness can have, and I know the effects that
Hmm.
forgiveness can have in a positive way.
Yeah. Yeah. And forgiving a person, doesn't, as you said, doesn't condone their
No,
behavior, but I've heard it said that, not forgiving is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
it's well said.
And
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's a really simple way to look
Yeah.
at it.
So this is
Ooh,
why,
but not easy to
yeah,
do.
this is why, okay, look at the potential toxic people in your life and then look at your reaction to it. Because we're only
Hmm.
responsible for what we do with it. Have you stored
Yep.
up a lot of emotional injury? Have you suffered a lot with maybe sometimes unexplainable physical issues? And
Hmm.
maybe sleep is nightmarish at times. So it's just something to look at to see if this fits. Because
Yeah.
again, we can only control what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I guess that's where our true power really
Yeah.
lies, is that we can only control what's going on in our own yard.
Yeah.
Speaking
Yeah.
metaphorically, in our own yard, that's all we can
Mhm.
control. And to think that we have any control over a person's reaction or how they're going to speak to us, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not going to
And
happen.
by the way, we'll always have some toxic people in our life. Okay.
Yep.
And some of them are toxic because it's by intent. They have a malicious intent to be hurtful. That's what
Hmm.
they're trying to do. Other people are
Yeah.
toxic because sometimes they're really clueless, right?
Hmm.
They
That's
grew up a
true.
certain way. This is the way I've always been. What's wrong with you? This is the way I am. Okay. They're like
Hmm.
clueless. Okay. So, but either way, uh, we still have to come back and go, what's my response to this?
Yeah. And I think the hard one for me is when I'm in the middle of that toxic moment of, instead of rushing to give a response, I'm working on pushing the pause button and not taking on their
Yeah.
negativity and not taking on their energy. And instead of, responding to their question or whatever it is, or their statement, I might ask them a question. Can you explain what you mean by that? Or, I'll try to reframe it a little bit to just slow it down, because I'm a high energy
Yeah.
person, and my mind is going. And sometimes I don't do it well, and I just get right in there with them, and we're both slinging mud. So, but if I can push the pause button and maybe ask a question, then it seems to diffuse it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well said.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm learning.
Well,
I'm
we all
learning.
are. And we're always
We
learning
all.
about, okay, who's safe? No, a toxic person's not emotionally safe. And so
Hmm.
I would say trust yourself, trust your gut, trust your discernment. If you continually are around a person that is causing you a lot of grief, um, okay, we don't tell them, hey, you're a toxic person. Come on. Right.
Right.
That's not, but we're identifying who these people are, and ask yourself, do I feel emotionally safe around them? Am I trusting them? There are people that
Hmm.
may say something to you verbally and they do something entirely different. They're passive aggressive. Sometimes
Hmm.
we're on the receiving end of other people's own anger. They're an angry person. It's nothing to do with you, but you end up being the target. So let's just
Right.
increase our
Right.
awareness of this.
Yeah, and I think awareness is super helpful. And I will say I have attracted my fair share of toxic people
Mhm.
in my life. But really, post cancer, I had the opportunity to make some
Yeah.
decisions about whether or not I wanted to keep some of these toxic relationships. And I happy to say I don't have them anymore.
Yeah.
Of course, life just happens, and you do have people in your life, and maybe they're family members, maybe they're coworkers, but I have reduced my exposure,
Yes.
if that makes sense,
Yeah.
to these people. And that feels a lot safer now.
That's really good. I like how you put that, reducing the exposure. And that's what it is. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes, you said this so well about we attract, we can attract people to us. And if we're unhealthy, we might be attracting other unhealthy people. And
Yep.
cancer can be, it's that great awakening that says, what do I need to change? And
Yep.
sometimes it's a change in relationships.
It really is. And that for me, that was, I heard a long time ago, somebody said people are like elevators. They either take you up or they take you
Yeah.
down. And I thought, okay, after cancer, became very clear what people were elevators taking me up. And those are the people that are in my life now. And those are the people that are a part of my inner circle.
Yes.
But, you also, there's some scary moments too of, wow, I'm cutting people out of my life. And so that might be scary during that time, but I would think that would open up some space to really create some great new relationships.
Well, that's the point. Now I can create and maintain other healthy relationships. It makes some space for that. And there is nothing
Yeah.
more rewarding than having good, healthy relationships. I was just having the conversation not long ago with my wife and said, really, when it boils down to it, what do we have? Well, we have the quality of our relationships. And so we want to always do a little evaluation and just go, okay, the 5 closest people in my life are 4 of those in the toxic category? Who's influencing my life? And we want to have 2, 3 that are really close to us, that we really trust. But who's the core group in your life, and how are they influencing you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And can I also throw in there, what about toxic things in your life? Maybe
Oh,
it's not people, but you have the news
yeah.
on all day long. You're listening to talk radio, loud music. Can all of those things affect you like a toxic person
I
could?
think they really do add up. And what's my environment feeding me? If I'm on a
Mm,
nonstop news channel, whatever, yeah,
yeah.
and then I end up, because most people right now, when they do that, they end up not feeling any better and they feel more confused. It's like,
Yes,
okay,
that's really true.
now I don't even know what's true. All right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that sense of distrust is a big theme right now. And so be careful about what you're uh, feeding yourself in your environment. We believe here at the center that environment's really important. So we even do our rooms and our environment in a certain way. We believe that music's important. We want to create more of a
Oh.
healing environment, even right down to the lighting. And what is the lighting? All of that affects us.
That is great. So while you're making these changes and, reevaluating some of your toxic relationships, it sounds like you need to you work on your home environment
Yeah.
also.
If you're in a home environment that is extremely cluttered, disorganized, dirty. Okay. I
Mm.
was just talking with a person, met with a person has been given a cancer diagnosis. And
Mhm.
the home would probably look like a hoarder's home, and just
Okay.
everything is disarray, stacks of things everywhere, and everything in that person's life seems out of order. And so
Mhm.
I need to create order and order in my space. That's a part of my wellness. If I
Wow, that's
have a stack
good.
of things that I'm avoiding and I keep adding to it,
Mhm.
I'm creating more and more mental clutter. And a lot of that
Mhm.
um, really does have a negative effect on us.
Boy, it really does. And clutter, I just know that when I get home and, I'm just kind of flinging stuff on the counters that I've just gone to Costco and there's just
Yes.
stuff everywhere. I'm grateful that I did the Costco run and I have all the food, but it makes me a little anxious to just look at the piles of stuff and the things I need to unpack and all of that. So can your home environment bump up your anxiety?
Yes, because it's going to create order or a sense of disorder. So
Hmm.
um, I would say even how we Are we letting natural light in? Okay. Not when it's time to sleep, but some tend to pull all the blinds, and I hide away, and I go on a screen, and I waste my evening in social media.
Yeah.
And the question is, do I feel better or worse? Well, we already know if you already struggle with some depression, anxiety, the more time I spend online, the worse I feel. I don't feel any better.
Really? Okay.
So
Yeah. I mean, I can feel that. I feel that too. I feel like it can be such a dark hole, scrolling or gaming, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know people who get home from work and they go into their gaming room and they're in there until midnight.
Yeah. So that escapism behavior, which is avoidism behavior, can become addictive behavior. So the person that is social media or digital addiction, the gaming, I will tell you, gaming disorder is real.
Really?
It is real.
Okay.
There are those that is the 32-year. I'm just going to make up a typical one, but a 32-year-old male who's gaming every night, living in the parents' basement. I know of a situation very similar to that. And the mom, he's in his 30s. The mom will come down and bring him dinner so he can keep gaming.
Oh boy.
See what happens? Okay. That's not a healthy situation.
That is so not healthy. Oh my gosh. So basically completely sedentary. You're sitting in the dark. Mommy's still waiting on you. Yeah. So, I just had an interview earlier today with a world-renowned cancer doctor, and we were talking about how sedentary people have become.
Oh, yeah.
And how terrible it is for your health. And when you look at all these young people now with cancers, it's the fastest growing group, one of the fastest growing groups, younger people like 20s to 40s with cancer.
Yes.
And she was saying, processed foods, being sedentary, a lot of EMFs, sticking your cell phone in your back pocket and, just letting it touch your body all day long, or, you're just, we've really gotten unhealthy. Yeah.
No, that's a really good point and something to look at. So we need other people, but we need healthy people and we need activity. We certainly need good nutrition. And what are we feeding our mind with? So important. And by the way, it is easy just to escape, go, and grab this right here, and I can get lost in it for a long time. And it's like like any other addiction. You go, well, how long were you on social media? Oh, it was an hour. Well, it was really 5 hours, right? It's like, how many beers did you drink? Oh, just one, but it was a 6-pack. So we get lost.
Right. We do. And I learned this when I was getting my nutrition degree, is that my professors would tell me people always underreport their exercise, or overreport their exercise and underreport their food. So when you're doing the survey, I ran for 10 miles. No, you ran for 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're not always the best judge of ourselves when it comes to our healthy behaviors. And I can see, I take this phone. I like to look at recipes. I like to look at pictures of rescue dogs. And next thing you know, 2 hours are gone.
Yes. And I'm not saying having some time is wrong, but we lose our boundaries around technology. And so as we look at toxic people, we got to also look at boundaries in our life, boundaries in relationships. Are we letting the good or bad in relationships? Boundaries in what we're allowing it to come through our eyes, and social media, boundaries around our nutrition, so having a sense of impulse control. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes a toxic person is very impulsive. We call it low impulse control. They're just acting out, saying things verbally, and they're hurtful. Yeah. Well, we need to ask ourselves, how's my own impulse control? Am I controlling my impulses related to food, alcohol, but gaming.
Hmm.
How's my impulse control? Do I have good
Right. Because it's
boundaries
all
around
going
it?
to, right. And it's all going to impact your health at some level.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. So yeah, you've given me and us, all of us listening, so much to think about today. And I wanted to just tiptoe into
Okay.
anxiety. And I loved your book, The Anxiety Reset, that came out maybe a year ago,
So,
2 years
yep.
ago. Yeah. And so I have to think that a lot of the behaviors we see today with a lot of phone use, watching too much news, getting too involved in, the news cycle, and there's a presidential campaign. I mean, it's just like all the things that could just derail you, and you can probably move pretty easily into anxiety.
Yes.
And I've got to imagine that has such an impact on your health.
Yes. And we live in an anxious time. And by that, I mean, anxiety is the number one non-medical diagnosis right now. So
Mm.
anxiety disorder, there's social anxiety disorder, generalized anxiety, panic attacks. So anxiety comes in different flavors, but a sense
Mm-hmm.
of just anxiety that you can't seem to brush it off. It's always there. You kind of wake up with that pit in your stomach. So
Right.
anxiousness. And this is where I say a toxic person uh, probably can create a lot of anxiety if we allow them.
Yes.
No, by the way,
Yes.
if it's anxiety, because anxiety is different than worry. Worry is mental. Worry is what I'm thinking. And I can dwell enough
Mm-hmm.
on worry that I start to have physical symptoms. And so anxiety usually means there's a physical symptom. I might occasionally get sweaty palm. It disrupts my sleep. I
Mm-hmm.
wake up in the night and my heart's racing. I have
Mm-hmm.
trouble with concentration. I can't seem to concentrate because I'm anxious. I have a hard time making a decision. Anxiety slows down our decision-making progress. This part of our brain right here, the prefrontal cortex, that's where we're supposed to be making good
Mm-hmm.
decisions. When you're anxious, your body kind of skips that part of your brain and goes back to the more primitive part of your brain. And you got either freeze, you just can't make a decision because
Mm-hmm.
you're so anxious, or you just feel like
Right.
running off.
Interesting. Okay. And so that is going to have a huge impact on your
Yes.
health because of the physical manifestations of anxiety.
Oh, yes. And there are. And it's going to be very similar to what a
Yeah.
toxic person can do if we allow them.
Hmm.
So, because an
Hmm.
anxious body, well, we know it's going to affect digestion. We know that over
Mm-hmm.
time,
Right.
um, you're going to experience maybe a lot of just gut issues. But I've also seen a lot
Mm-hmm.
of unexplainable, even joint pains and just
Hmm.
headaches. There's the anxiety that causes you at times to overeat.
Yes. I've seen that a lot in my practice.
I'm
Yes.
eating to feel
Mm-hmm.
comfort.
Yeah. Right.
So,
Right. Food is love. Yeah.
mm,
Yeah. So, you mentioned about taking back your personal power through the power of
yeah.
forgiveness when it comes to toxic people. Is there a first step when you've recognized, oh my gosh, I think I'm anxious about XYZ? Is there a first step you can take?
Yes. And dealing with, I'm anxious because of a person.
Or just anxiety in general?
Oh,
Maybe you
okay.
just like you'd
Yeah.
mentioned, you wake up in the morning and you just have that dread of, yeah, maybe you're going to see that person who pushes your buttons, or maybe you have to make a presentation at work and get up in front of a bunch of
Yeah.
people. Nobody likes to do public speaking, right?
So, and there are sometimes normal anxieties. If you were just handed a
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis, if you were just
Mm.
experienced a loss or something totally out of your control happened, your response, and it'd be a natural one, is to suddenly feel anxious and your body kind of goes into that anxious state. We just can't live there
Mm-hmm.
day after day. So
Right,
anxiety
right.
requires a plan. And so one of the
Mm.
things we need to look at, sometimes we don't even know all the things that are creating anxiety. I have over here I have here a journal. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
even if you said, okay, 15 minutes before I go to bed, and I want you to write out what were the predominant emotions for the day, anger, fear, guilt, shame. But what
Oh, I'm writing this
what
down.
was
Oh,
controlling
great.
you this day? When I say anger, hurt could be a form of anger. Um, so that whole area. Okay, so anger, fear, anxiety, worry,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other category would be guilt. And with guilt, I'd say shame, with just things I felt shameful about. But what was the predominant emotions? Right no more than 15 minutes. And on
Mm-hmm.
maybe a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being really big, what was my anxiety, my anxiousness? How would I rate it? And then the last question just to ask yourself, I just want you to do this for a couple of weeks. But the last question to
Mm-hmm.
ask yourself is, what did I do with my anxiety? Where did it go? And just
Mm.
make some notes. Oh, I guess I stopped every day at a fast food drive-through place and I kind of binged in the car on my way home. I guess that's what I did with my anxiety. So what is it? What
Yeah.
did you do with it? So really,
Hmm.
well, I just want to increase an awareness and see, okay, this is what's going on. And, just a couple weeks of
Yeah.
writing some notes in a journal can be quite enlightening. It's just a place to begin.
Right. So
Yes.
self-awareness. Yeah. I had a client years ago when I was first starting my business, and I'm a certified nutritionist, but she caused me so much anxiety that every time I would see her, I would buy an apple
Yeah.
fritter and eat it before I saw her. And I thought finally, after about, I don't know, 6 weeks of that, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm a certified nutritionist. I am just like mowing down this apple fritter.
Yes.
This probably,
Yes.
1,500 calories of just junk food to gear myself up to meet her. And I needed the money. Like I couldn't let her go as a client. And finally I just thought, this is impacting my health because I'm eating crap that excuse my language, I'm eating stuff
Yeah.
I would never ever eat. So it was such an empowering day when I was able to say, you know what, I'm not the person that you need to be working with, but let me refer you to 3 other people
Yeah.
who might be able to handle you more than and better than I
That's good.
can. So it just felt so powerful but similar. I was, kind of taking notes, maybe not at night, but during the day of just like, oh my gosh, I don't like who I'm becoming
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
her. Yeah.
Yeah. What a
Yeah.
great example. So, and I do want
Yeah.
to say there
Yeah.
is hope if you're feeling anxious and you feel like, man,
Mhm.
this feels so overwhelming. Let's just start with some baby steps and we'll build a plan over time. You mentioned the anxiety book, and part of why I put a 12-week plan is it takes a little bit of time. And
Mm.
there reaches a point too where it could feel so unmanageable and you're not functioning well and you know it, that it may be time to
Yeah.
ask for some outside help, be willing to get
Mhm.
that. That can be important. Sometimes we start to get awareness and we start, oh, okay, I can make some changes, and you do, and you're successful. Other
Mhm.
times we need
Yeah.
help.
Yeah. And to be able to ask for that help without
Yeah,
judgment from the people around you or judging yourself, because we all need help at some point.
we do. We do.
And that's just part of our journey.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is kind of funny. I have like 100-page book because people like small books now. Our attention,
They
our
do.
attention span has dropped. But this is how to deal with toxic people. It's like, I don't know,
Ooh.
it's like 111 pages. All right.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh, that's
Because
great.
okay. But this little book is in airports everywhere, and something about an airport and toxic people, right?
That's great. I need to get a copy of that for my next flight.
Yeah. But because I have to tell you, I know from experience, we all have these people in our life. We all do.
We do.
And it's
Yeah.
something that, and sometimes they sneak in. A toxic person
Hmm.
could come as very, I don't know, outgoing or charismatic. And you go, oh, that's a great. And
Right.
then you kind of get to know them and you go, oh, something's really wrong here. So,
Right. There's something off
yeah.
here. Yeah. But then it feels like it's too late. So, but it's not. It's never too late. And doing like you said, the self-care, taking your power back by forgiveness. And I love the idea of the journaling before bed of, okay, what were my primary emotions today? And not, you said put a 15-minute cap
Yeah.
on it, because it'd be really easy to just do, 3 hours of, I hate everybody. But putting a cap on it of 15 minutes is probably also
Well,
really
and if you feel
healthy.
like keep writing and writing, that tells you something's going on.
Sure does. Yeah, it sure
Yeah.
does. So, oh, Dr. Greg Jantz, always a pleasure to talk to you. I feel like I have certainly had my share of toxic
Yeah,
people
me
in my
too.
life. I feel pretty toxic free
Yeah.
now, which is great. But this is the conversation I wish I could have listened in on in my
Yeah.
20s. So I'm just believing that this conversation is going to be such a blessing to anybody who gives it a listen. So thank you again for
Oh,
coming
you're
on. Why Did I
welcome.
Get Cancer?
Absolutely, Deborah. And there really is hope. And thank you
There is
for
hope.
all that you do, because you're a voice of hope.
Oh, thank you so much. I love this new mission I'm on.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Uh,
And we need you. And
oh,
so,
thank you.
so please continue what you're doing, because what you're doing shows us there really is hope. You've walked it,
Oh,
and you show us that
oh,
there's another side.
thank you. On the other side is much
Yeah.
joy. Much joy and hope. So thanks,
Yeah.
Dr.
Welcome. Great to be with
Jantz.
you today.
Hey everyone. A lot of you have been asking me about the products I use on my face. I've never been one to get a lot of compliments on my skin, but I tell you, since I switched over to this product, it's been about 10 years now, I get so many compliments on my skin, and I want to keep that going. So Body Deli is what I use. It's a small company out of Palm Springs, California. They grow a lot of their own produce that they then end up turning into products for your face. Non-toxic. I mean, honestly, my skin just eats it up. So there's a couple of products that I absolutely love. I've tagged them in the show notes. One is the Phoenix Skin and Neck Oil. I mean, I'm at that age. I need to focus on these things. And I tell you, if I don't use this every night, my skin gets so dry. And then the vitamin C serum, I tell you, whenever I put it on my skin, I feel like it's just like taking this amazing vitamin, and my skin just looks better. I get compliments. As I said, my skin kind of just, glows even when I'm not wearing makeup. So I'm a huge fan of Body Deli. Again, the link is in the show notes. Use the code ENOS15 and get 15% off of your purchase. Again, one of my favorite companies, and I hope you enjoy the products as much as I do. Thank you for joining me today on the Why Did I Get Cancer podcast. I've got my shopping guide for all of my cancer self-care items in the show notes, along with information about today's guest and our show sponsors. And don't forget to subscribe to my podcast so you never miss an episode. Keep in mind, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a gal that got diagnosed with cancer and wanted answers. If you need medical advice, please be sure to consult with a medical professional. And thank you for listening.